Yeah. Okay, did you hear that? So we are recording. And Shar is at the controls for that. So don't ask me how it all works, but Shar knows more than me.
And this will be available to people who could not be here tonight for whatever reason, and for any of us who want to go back and review something. So
Okay.
sorry for the interruption.
No problem. So as I said, we're currently in the process of completing phase one. But our study area is bounded by Candelaria to the north, I-40 to the south, San Mateo to the east, and I-25 to the west. We are focusing on the non-residential properties in the study area and issues related to vacant buildings and properties, deteriorated conditions and crime, changing retail trends, and transportation systems. Our first meeting was held on May 20th of this year. And again, we're at the end of phase one. That phase included data research and analysis, documentation of existing conditions within the study area, development and distribution of a business owner survey, real estate market research, and the development of recommendations for subsequent phases of the project. Our next two phases will, if warranted, phase two will include a Mra Designation Report, and that's simply a geographic designation of a metropolitan redevelopment area that meets the state of New Mexico's definition of blight. And it allows public-private partnerships and other things that encourage redevelopment. We also phase three will take up from where phase two leaves off and create a MRA plan, and I'll go into more detail about that in a moment. Let's see. Okay, so I'll try to quickly go through some of the data that we collected. We looked at the businesses in the study area. We found that there were 727 businesses in 2020. And those businesses employed 7,500 people. So it's a really, pretty impressive area in terms of GRT and generating tax revenue for the city of Albuquerque. Our top 6 industries relative to the number of businesses include retail trade, other services, construction, wholesale trade, manufacturing, and accommodation and food services. And I would say, you can see the numbers on my screen, but by far retail trade is the largest category. It represents 22% of the total number of businesses, with 160 businesses and over 1,700 employees. So it's a big driver of the economy in this area. Our total retail sales in the study area was $382 million. And there's, we have a breakdown in the study document of what kind of industries those, or what kind of retail businesses are generating those numbers. I'm not going to go into that in detail, but obviously having 2 Walmarts within the study area helps tremendously. We also did a business owner survey. We ran the survey from April 26th to June 10th. We sent out notification to every physical business address in the study area. We only got 45 responses, still good, but I think a lot of people must have missed it. But we did look at the survey responses, and just to summarize, because there's a lot of detail in there, and again, you can see the draft document on the City Council's website. But the top three aspects that we asked respondents to identify what were most in need of significant improvement, including transients and homelessness issues. That's something that's a very common theme in this study and really throughout Albuquerque. That's a really big issue that we're all facing now. Vandalism and property crimes, litter and trash, those were the three aspects most in need of significant improvement. We also asked what were the top three priorities the city should focus on improving. Not surprisingly, crime prevention is at the top, lighting improvements still pretty strong, and graffiti removal. We also asked what kind of businesses or activities should be added to the study area. And I've sort of segregated, to the most common choices, and those were sit-down restaurants. People always respond that way. Retail stores, breweries, distilleries, or tap rooms, and entertainment. Those were the top three choices or options that were identified. We also asked people to rate the amenities in the area, and we had a big list of different items, but the things that had the lowest ratings were bike trails, bike lanes, bike trails, visual attractiveness, lighting came up again, sidewalks and pedestrian crosswalks. Okay, so this slide is the result of our SWOT analysis that we did in May at our public meeting. I know it's probably really hard to read this, so I'll summarize a little bit. We're definitely, there's a lot of strengths in the area. I would say first and foremost, people cited proximity to the interstates is seen as a very strong positive, as well as visibility, new tenants in the area such as Maverick. Also, people identified Crowne Plaza and La Quinta as strengths of the area. Weaknesses, not surprisingly, included high crime rate, high cost of doing business due to crime, homelessness, vandalism, etc. In terms of opportunities, the flip side to some of those things are the opportunities. So bringing new businesses into the vacant spaces is seen as an opportunity, making the area more bikeable and walkable. And also the Midtown Business Coalition, which we had a meeting, we went to one of their meetings a few weeks ago and spoke there. Threats include more businesses leaving the area due to crime, general disinvestment in the area, hotel raids and criminal activity. And then there's a lot of concern for personal safety in the area. So those are some of the threats. The next series of slides really document our existing conditions analysis, both from a city planning policy standpoint and then physical aspects of the area. So this slide, well, it's got the wrong title on it. I apologize for that. This is not existing land use. This is planning context. And we show areas of consistency and areas of change. Those are areas of change, are those areas where growth is encouraged and best served with transit. And then areas of consistency are where development should be designed to reinforce the character, scale, and intensity of surrounding neighborhoods or non-residential development. So you can see most of it, the study area are areas of consistency, but the areas, particularly along the corridors, are areas of change. Okay, and then this slide shows the comprehensive plan corridors, which the comprehensive plan, if you're familiar with that, designates a network of corridors, and those are intended to balance connectivity and ensure access to the activity centers. So we have we have a number of different corridor types, and each of them represent a different mix of transportation and land uses, and they have a specific set of objectives and policies in the comprehensive plan. There are a number of different corridors designated within the study area. Those include commuter corridors, which are I-25 and I-40. Menaul is a multimodal corridor. University Boulevard is a premium transit corridor. And then Carlisle and San Mateo are major transit corridors. Okay. This next slide shows, this is meant to show activity centers. We do have one smack in the middle of our study area. That's the American Square at Carlisle and Menaul. And activity centers, these are also designated by the comprehensive plan. And the policies for activity centers make it appropriate for higher density residential and commercial development that are accessible within a 20-minute walk or a short bike ride. They're intended to draw new development to enhance the commercial activity in the area. Okay. This next slide is the existing land use. My office completed a windshield survey back in May, and I would just say that, you know, the dominant land use in the study area is commercial. That's that bright red color. That's 54% of the area. The purple is the next most common land use, and that's industrial manufacturing. That's at about 22% of the study area. So between those two, it's, you know, over 76%. And then you can see on the slide there, we call out restaurants separately, institutional, those are things like schools and things like that, office. There is a little bit of multifamily in here, a little bit of mobile home park, a park itself. And then we also document vacant lots, vacant buildings, and to the best of our ability, vacant tenant spaces. So you can see the striped gray areas are the vacant buildings, and you can see where they're located. They're, you know, they're a little bit everywhere, but there's also clumps of them in certain areas, particularly around the University Menaul intersection and moving east to the North Diversion Channel. We also look at existing zoning. The area is basically dominated by three zone categories: NRLM, which is non-residential light manufacturing; NRC, which is non-residential commercial; and MXM, which is mixed use moderate intensity. The NRLM, that's the purple color again, that's over 30% of our study area. And that's, you know, mostly west of the North Diversion Channel. NRC, again, that's the red area. That's about 29%. And that's the bright red color. And then MXM is the brown color, and that's also about 29% of the area. We also were tasked with looking at existing transit. Generally speaking, the area is pretty well served by transit, and we attribute that due to its proximity to UNM, its central location, and then also major employment areas. There's certainly room for improvement at the bus stops. We looked at all of those along the corridors, and we have some recommendations about that. Some don't have signage. Many of them are being used by non-transit riders and homeless people, and they're generally sort of dirty and littered with trash. So there's definitely room for improvement there. My next slide is bike facilities. Again, somewhat well served with facilities, particularly the North Diversion Channel Trail and the Embudo Trail. So, those are north-south connectivity, generally speaking, is better than east-west. Our study called for maybe looking at bike lanes along the major corridors of Menaul and Candelaria, especially east of the diversion channel. This last slide in our existing conditions is the opportunity zone. You can see that the study area is, it's about, it's within the opportunity zone, but it's mostly Carlisle to I-25, and opportunity zones provide tax benefits to investors. It's one of the tools that communities use to try to entice commercial and other types of development. And so it hasn't been real well used, but it is a tool for redevelopment purposes and development, not just redevelopment. Okay, so this slide is basically a culmination of our research and analysis and forms the backbone for our recommendations. Our recommendations include several different entities, a combination of council services, Department of Municipal Development, the MR agency, MAFCA, and other partners, including entities like PNM. So I'm going to go through the recommendations, and then we'll open it up for some comments. The first recommendation that I want to go through is the MRA designation. So based on our analysis, one of our key recommendations is to designate a sub area of the study area as an MRA. And you can see that area, it's dashed with a red and black dashed line here. It's basically, we saw clear signs of disinvestment and blighted conditions. It's an area between I-25 to the North Diversion Channel and I-40 to the area just north of the Menaul corridor. It's characterized by a number of restaurants and commercial businesses that have closed, and those buildings have become really attractive nuisances. You can see in some of our photos where we took earlier photos of the range before it was all, before they broke in and had to board up all the windows. So that's becoming more and more of a problem. It's the concern here is if something doesn't shift from this trend, business owners will continue to close up shop and disinvest in the area, move somewhere else. So we really don't want that to happen. We also identify a couple opportunity sites for redevelopment. I'm going to turn the slide for a moment here. One is at the northeast corner of Claremont and Vassar Drive. You can see in the photo here, it's a big vacant parcel. I know other, some developers that have looked at it, not real seriously, but it's a very visible, vacant, not a good looking site the way it exists today. Our other opportunity site that we identified is behind the Walmart to the west. It's at the southeast corner of Claremont and Richmond Drive. So moving back to here, our recommendation is for the city to work with these property owners to identify potential options for developing and putting the properties back into productive use. Okay, then our next recommendation, and it really stemmed from our other public meeting in May, but we like the recommendation. is to potentially have an APD substation, and that's based on all the concerns we heard about crime and vandalism in the study area. Our recommendation is to look at one of the buildings along Menaul to redevelop it for a APD substation. It could be the entire building, it could be a small part of the building, but the idea is to have some police presence in the area. And we have identified that on the map as well. So let's see, lighting. So I didn't mention this earlier, but as part of our analysis, myself, Shar, and Marky actually met at 8:30 in the evening and drove around for an hour to look at where we could see some, really dark corridors in the study area, because we heard that concern loud and clear. So we did a very informal site lighting survey from our car. So our recommendations include council services coordinating with P&M on installing streetlights. Like Candelaria is a very, very dark street. And in this symbol, this sort of blue and gray striped line work, that's where the dark corridors are. We may have missed some, but I think we got most of them. Candelaria is really dark. So we'd like to see P&M, install some new streetlights. They don't have to be fancy ones, but something to light up the area, because there's a big concern about that. Other street corridors we identified: Cutler between Washington and San Mateo, Claremont between Vassar and University, Menaul west of University, Bryn Mawr south of Menaul. The other lighting recommendation that we identified is to coordinate with the MAFCA, and I know Brad is on the call, so don't mean to put you on the spot, Brad, but to coordinate with the MAFCA on adding lighting to the North Diversion Channel. It's a very dark area, and I, for one, would never ride my bike in the evening along there. It's just too dark. So in terms of transit, we have recommended that City Transit complete an evaluation on how to best discourage camping out at the bus shelters. A lot of cities have grappled with that issue. I did some research on the internet about it. There's different levels of success with that. But we also want to recommend that the shelters are cleaned more frequently. Some of them are pretty unpleasant, and it's discouraging transit use. And then also consider replacing some of the single benches that are out there with no shade structure, to replace those with shelters, and then also posting a sign that prohibits loitering. It may not discourage some of the homeless people from loitering or others from loitering, but I'm told by APD that you gotta post these signs before they can really do anything. So moving on to building and sidewalk improvements, and we show that on the map as well. We have, I'm not sure which screen you can see, but we have these areas along Menaul and also north on San Mateo. Many of these small commercial properties and buildings along Menaul, and we've shown it from Morningside east to San Mateo and then north to Candelaria. They're showing a lot of signs of distress and blight in the building facades, the windows, the parking lots, the sidewalks, some pretty bad conditions. We've recommended that the city assist by being a conduit of information on available small business loans, and perhaps design assistance through entities such as the city's MR agency or New Mexico Main Street, who have architects on staff and can help with some of those kind of efforts. And those would be to help apply for facade improvement grant programs as applicable. We also recommend that DMD, the Department of Municipal Development, complete an evaluation of the sidewalks along these areas. Again, Menaul, east of Morningside, and then San Mateo north, to look at what the sidewalk conditions are and replace sections that are cracked or heaving, install handicap curb ramps that don't meet ADA standards. Lastly, we recommend to continue dialoguing with business owners. We heard at the public meeting in May, and then also in our survey, that some of the business owners are really feeling a sense of neglect from the city regarding the crime issues that they're experiencing. We've recommended that council services continue dialoguing with the business owners in this area, including attending Midtown Business Association meetings, also meetings with the Cutler Avenue Business Group that is pretty active and interested, and trying to keep that conversation going about what their priorities and needs are to help them in continuing to be successful in this area. That's the opportunity sites. So that is the end of my presentation. Our next steps, one is we need to finalize the phase 1 study document. We've gotten a few comments from people that I need to go back in and make some revisions. After that, we'll be going to City Council for adopting the study by resolution. And then from that point forward, we'll do the designation report, start working on the MRA plan. But like I explained just a few minutes ago, there are recommendations that involve the MR designation, but there are a lot of recommendations that have nothing to do with the MR designation. So implementation will start hopefully this year and move forward into the future. We'll be collecting comments both at this meeting and then also in the next 2 weeks. We do have all this information on the city's website. And so you can either provide comments this evening, and I've got my staff ready to take notes. Or if you don't feel like talking in public, you can also go on to the city's website. You can see the link on my screen and submit comments that way. And again, that will be up for the next 2 weeks. So feel free to log in and tell us what you think. Our contacts are below that. Petra is the council planning manager. Her email, pmorris@cabq.gov. Very easy. Abby Stiles, who's the councilor's policy analyst. Her email, astiles@cabq.gov. And then finally, my email from Consensus Planning, fishman@consensusplanning.com. So with that, we stand ready to hear your comments, questions, concerns. And who wants to go first?
So this is Petra. I'm while everyone's kind of warming up, I've just been scanning through the chat. And I do want to reiterate to everyone that everything will be going onto the website tomorrow. So we'll have a recording of this, the slides, and then the draft plan. It's quite a big document in terms of not page numbers, but size for email. And so it's a little bit too big to email out, but the link will be on there and you can download it as a PDF. And print it off or read it online at your leisure. And also Abby and I's email addresses are on there. And so once you've had a chance to digest all of this, if you have questions or comments that you want to send to us, or you've read the draft plan and you have some comments that you think we should incorporate, you can also contact us through the project website.
Everybody's being very quiet. Oops.
Hi, my name is Halia Todd, and I work with Sun Capital Hotels, and I'm here on behalf of Deepesh Kolwadwala. And I have a question. I'm really familiar with this site. I spend lots of time at the La Quinta, and a challenge that I see is that behind our businesses is there's a lot of space that is not developed, and so it kind of makes like a highway or an area for transients and homeless to make camps or pass behind our businesses and enter from behind. If you could, look into, these areas of opportunities behind businesses, in between businesses, alleyways on making improvements, or looking at making them not as accessible, I think would also help in improving the area to deter criminals and the homeless situation that is upon us.
Okay. Thank you for your comment.
This is Joni Jones. I'm general manager at the Crowne Plaza Hotel. My question is, would there ever be an on and off ramp for Menaul? Would that ever be part of the highway structure? We've got a university exit, but when you come down that exit, it looks really, really bad with those trees on the north side. To then take a right or go straight on the freeway. The freeway, it just looks so bad when you come down University, but I don't know if there'd ever be a chance to get a Menaul exit.
So the freeway access is decided at the New Mexico Department of Transportation's level. It's certainly something we can ask about in terms of their interest in it. They generally don't add more accesses, but certainly those access points can be improved in terms of landscaping, and that's something that the city and the DOT can work on together. So that at least if you're coming off of the Pan American Freeway, that can be a more attractive experience.
Just a lot of trucks going in and out of the university exit to get to the I guess the metro-centric area. And it's just, it wears on the roads, and yeah, it's just kind of unsightly.
Okay.
This is Brad Bingham with Amafka.
Hi, Brad.
Hi, good evening. So I saw one of your slides. I saw on the trail network, I think you saw a future crossing of the North Diversion Channel. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that for us? Yeah, the other slide.
Okay.
So does that mean that there'll be a Claremont and Richmond bike lane or bike ways on those two streets as well?
So it looks like there's you're talking about this area where my pointer is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It looks like it's a proposed paved trail connecting to a bike route on Claremont.
Okay.
Is okay. It's
so yeah, there's not a access through that business,
Okay,
to the North Diversion Channel, there's a drainage way to the south, of course, but that's probably too close to Menaul connecting. So is that something the city has? And I know you're not bikes and parks and rec and all those guys, something they're eagerly pursuing?
well, and Brad, I'm not sure I can speak to that. I mean, we got this layer off the city's Aegis site.
Okay, all right,
So this isn't what we're proposing. This is
Right,
what the
no.
city has.
okay, so they've already published that.
Yes.
So, okay,
So for a bit of clarification, this is the layer on Aegis is the long range bikeways and trails plan that goes into the COGS and Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And so the solid lines are the things that exist, and the dotted lines are recommended in some way. So all of those dotted lines are at some stage of recommendation, whether they're 30 years out or a year or two out. And it really depends, but we can look into that to see where that is with the COG in terms of priorities, but I don't know if that one being a big current priority.
so otherwise, maybe the Richmond could be the bike route, and the bicyclists would have to connect at Candelaria and Menaul.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe you spoke to it. This is Joni again from the Crowne Plaza. The problem areas on the map that showed the little problem, I assume those are the, let's see, I think they're the vacant buildings, maybe?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and what, do
Oh.
you know if there's any type of movement on getting those leased?
Well, I did work with some of the commercial brokers in town, NAI Sun Vista, and I think they're all trying to lease these buildings, but there's not a lot of movement. I mean, in terms of the area, what they told me is for industrial development, it's really strong. But for commercial development, commercial retail along Menaul, especially west of the North Diversion Channel, it's really challenged because of all the issues that we talked about.
Right.
So we have documented that in the study as well.
Okay.
So Jackie, if I may, can I ask a question sort of related to that last question? You mentioned that we have 2 Walmart stores in that area. I would suspect that greatly adds to the commercial or the retail trade
Absolutely.
numbers.
Yeah.
Not that I want to be dismissive of retail of Walmart, but because they're very busy and a lot of people use them, and I do too sometimes. But I'm just wondering, what the area would look like without them. How much of an impact do you suppose they have?
Counselor, I mean, especially the one north of Menaul has a huge impact to the area, and I think we documented it. And again, this was from NAI Sun Vista. They said that that was one of the top producing Walmarts, I think, in the state of New Mexico.
Wow.
The one that is south of Menaul, the smaller store, is not doing nearly as well. Obviously, it's a smaller store. It's not in the, quite the same great location. But without Walmart, the numbers would be way, way lower than what we're seeing.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Jackie,
Yes.
this is Diale. When I read the report, I know there were two vacant lots. One of them was owned by Walmart, and the other one, it wasn't clear who was the landlord or who owned that vacant lot. One question is, do you know the owner of the other large vacant lot? I think it was like
Yes.
1.93 acres. And then second question is, do you know what their vision, what their long-term plan is for that vacant lot?
So, Diali, you're talking about this one right here at Vassar and Menaul. And I do know the owner of it. I don't know if I should say that, in this meeting, but I can share that with you. I've talked to him before. I think, I don't know if he's working on any kind of plan for it. It's a bit of an eyesore in that area. So I think it would be a great place for redevelopment of some sort. I believe it's currently zoned MXM, so it would be appropriate for multifamily, for a combination of residential and commercial, if somebody, wanted to make that investment there.
Thank you. It will also be good to kind of chat with him privately. How ready is he for a redevelopment project? Which means if there are partners who are willing to help him,
Right.
to invest in that project, what amount of equity is he willing to contribute to the redevelopment of the project?
Okay. So I'll reach out and we can talk offline about that a little bit more.
I think part of the issue why that is vacant is because there was like a dump site at one point in this area. And so I've heard to actually build a building on that, you've got to excavate like 20 feet of dirt and then build it back up. So I think that's one of the reasons why there's no real development there, is because it would require a lot of infrastructure to actually build anything there. That's why it's just been leased as an empty lot for the last lot of years.
Okay.
So if this is Petra, if that is indeed the case, and that the site is, if I'm not getting myself confused, is within the proposed MR boundaries,
Yes.
that's where the MR designation can come in handy, because when properties are really difficult to develop because of big constraints like that, it can often make sense to do either some sort of public-private partnership, or extra types of financing is needed to kind of fill in some of the gaps to make something like that pencil. And so Diali, I'm sure, is very familiar with all of the different tools that are available financial wise or public-private partnership wise, that are an opportunity. And so that's where an MR designation could be helpful to make something happen.
Exactly, because we have the brownfields revolving loan, and
Right.
again, that's something which is it is a financing tool for a brownfield site which has an eligible contaminant on the Environmental Protection Agency website. So if the dump there is eligible, then the brownfields revolving loan can be used to clean up the area and redevelop it.
Mhm. Okay. Thanks for that.
What about the buildings that are vacant, that are not up for lease? Is there any type of, I don't know, mandate or anything out there that makes them either bring it down or I don't know, I guess, work on redeveloping it?
And I mean, Petra, you can jump in, but no, I don't believe there's a mandate. I think there's certainly direction from the city that those properties should be maintained and made safe and boarded up and, so that we don't have people camping out inside. And I'm assuming that's why the range had to board up all their windows because people were getting inside the building. But to my knowledge, at least the really visible ones all seem to be, for lease or sale or what have you. So it's probably not for lack of trying. Although there are, and you're very familiar with the corner at University in Menaul, the southwest corner. I don't include that property in my previous statement because that situation there has been like that for as long as I can remember. The Quonset hut and
Yes.
I doubt anybody's actively trying to lease or sell it. It's just a terrible eyesore.
Do you know if they come to any of the city meetings? Or are they just, I mean, they cleaned it up and took all the vehicles out of there and emptied it.
Okay.
From what I saw, because there used to be like an RV back there and trucks that had flat tires and weeds had grown all over, but they cleaned all that out maybe about a year ago.
Oh,
And so, but I mean, they do use our valet parking spaces in our valet parking lot and our employee lot. They use those little corner spaces to go into that little building, that little yellow building thing right there. I don't know. Just don't know how, if it's a business or I've never seen anyone there, but apparently they do use it.
yeah, my understanding is they've been approached to sell the property in years past. But they've always said they're not interested. So I don't know who owns it. If Petra or someone from council services, Abby or somebody, if you know anything more about that owner and that building.
I don't, but maybe Abby, is that one on your radar? I'd see if Abby's on the.
It is not one, whoops. It is not one that I'm familiar with. I can try and look, but I don't know how helpful that would be.
The sidewalk leading right on Menaul, the sidewalk leading up to University is really broken and cracked. I don't know if that's part of their property or not. I just don't know where the line is drawn from the city to the Quonset hut. And there is parking spaces along the Quonset hut, but the sidewalk is really pretty treacherous. And, to try to get across University and go down Menaul to maybe one of the restaurants that's open. When we send guests that way, because if we need to, they walk out
Okay.
of the hotel and it's bad.
I might suggest calling 311 on that because that might be a way that they can get at the property owner because they'll go in there and they'll do an inspection and then they will figure out who owns it and give them a citation. And then when, they're dealing with it, then they'll have an opening to deal with them.
And you said this presentation will be on that city website?
Yes.
It will, yes. And also to just follow up from what Abby had mentioned, Jackie had mentioned about, doing essentially a larger sidewalk inventory for the area.
Right.
One of the advantages of the Mra designation is that you don't have to worry about the anti-donation clause. So sidewalks are technically the responsibility of the property owner that it's in front of. But sidewalks are expensive, and so a lot of times people are reluctant to make the cost, or are unable to cover the costs of keeping the sidewalk up to date. And so if an area is designated an MR, we can do projects to work on improving the sidewalks in that area without worrying about getting into anti-donation issues. So that could also be something that would be a follow-up action, would be to identify where there are problems with the sidewalks and then get those fixed within that area.
What's the deal with that vacant metal building kind of at the end of that other Menaul Road, where there's like that little cul-de-sac? I heard it was like maybe a city-owned building, like it used to be a pump house or something. What's the possibility of getting the city to sell that off?
What street are you talking about?
So kind of, you got the Crowne and is it the Fairfield
Right,
behind there?
It's Menaul Road. It's a Menaul Road. It's that little road
Oh.
that goes into a cul-de-sac. Is that what you're talking about, Zach?
Yeah, the one right there by the frontage road.
Yep.
It's like a old, corrugated steel building that's vacant.
Right.
But we've heard in the past that it's like a city-owned building, and we have been trying to kind of like at our Midtown groups, we've kind of been trying to delve into, making some headway on that because it's it's an eyesore, but it's also an attractant for vagrants to camp out and create problems. So it'd be nice to be able to get that, maybe to a private business that can develop it, or even, use it for something other than just a vacant building, for sure.
And the land on it, the weeds have gotten extremely high. And, when you enter on Fairfield Road, which leads to Menaul Road, and then you go across Menaul Road, the weeds in that pump station on the east side are really high. They get really high.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can look into the ownership for that, and that sounds like potentially, if it is city owned, is another potential opportunity within the plan area, because the city owning it gives us, we're one step closer to doing something with it.
Mhm.
Theory.
Yeah, it would be a cool site to do some sort of even like a giant art project that's not art like the buses, but like a sculpture or something that's like a Space Needle type of thing, something that's it's right visible from both freeways, and with the backdrop of the Crowne, there's another giant building in the area. It'd be kind of cool to have a like some sort of monument building or something. It'd be kind of a interesting use of the space.
Welcome to Midtown.
There you go. I like
There you
that. I
go.
like
Something,
that.
like a giant, like lock and load, like you're in the welcome to the danger zone or something.
Oh,
No.
Keep your hands inside the vehicle.
Yeah. What
Sure.
about that? There's also that building between the Quonset hut building and the piano shop. What's the deal with that? Like, it's like a block building that's almost falling in. I can't imagine
Yes,
it's safe at this point.
Well, our owners own that, and we have a lot of stuff in there. But I don't know, at one point we were going to put an exhibit hall there. But it needs to come down. The ceiling's falling in. So yeah, it needs to come down.
and I was going to just add that, Cheryl looked it up, the little city building that we were talking about is actually owned by the Water Authority.
Oh,
So,
we can ask about that.
yeah,
Giant water fountain then.
there you go.
So Jackie, can I just have a minute here? I don't want to change subjects here, but I just want to address, the report talked quite a bit about lighting, and uh, and I'm glad that it, that happened because it brought to light, that's my pun for the night, some things that really should be looked at. However, we have asked for a lighting study, lighting study and an cost estimate for Candelaria from I-25 all the way over to Carlisle. We already have, going east of Carlisle on Candelaria, an agreement to put some lighting in. So we've got money for it. We have, I don't know whether that's been designed yet, but hopefully that will be going in. I'm hoping like by early next year.
Okay, that's excellent.
And then we'll get an estimate back and some information for the part of Candelaria that this study looked at, and or at least, I'm sorry, west of Carlisle rather, and hopefully get that serviced better.
Yeah, it's sort of strange how dark it is. And most of the lighting that you see on Candelaria is from the businesses, either their parking lots or their buildings. There is very, very few streetlights in that stretch.
Yeah, and that's, sometimes that's caused by trees, that provide shade or, block the streetlights, but that's not the case along there.
No, they're
Aren't
just
any
not there.
Street trees, so it's just lack of lighting.
Yep.
So the good news is that it's not quite as expensive as it used to be to add lighting, because now we are able to use solar, and that saves a lot.
That's good.
So,
All right,
keep you posted.
good. Any other comments or thoughts from people that we haven't heard from?
I'm just trying to get kind of an idea of where people are. Are you deliriously excited, or are you just terribly unhappy, or can you get a sense from folks, do you feel like we're going in the right direction here? I've told you, I think that we do, because if we can proceed through the recommendations that CPI has given us, there will be investment dollars coming into this area, and we can help turn it around. It's not a silver bullet to anything, right? But this really will make a difference. So as you know, I'm not going to be in office much longer, but that's the reason why I really wanted to have these meetings and be part of these meetings, because I want the people who have invested so much of their dollars and their lives and their energy into their businesses along here, or property that you're renting out. I want to help you, be successful. And I want other people to come in and make investments in this area. So
I think I'm very excited, deliriously excited, but I'm also pretty weary at the same time, honestly.
I get it.
I mean, we're the heart of the city. So, yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
I'm also excited, but again, with Joni and kind of Leary, it's like, we can do all the infrastructure changes in the world to make it the most beautiful place with the most best businesses. But if we don't start keeping criminals in jail and making our streets safer and making our city safer, then it's kind of like, what's the point in, what's the point? I think, and that's a lot of reason why some of these businesses have moved out, is the cost of doing business isn't worth the hassle or the trouble or the safety risk. So this is amazing. I can't wait. And selfishly, I'm trying to think of all the ways I can use this to my advantage, which I think is kind of, what it's meant to do to help grow the area. But also it's like, man, if we're doing all this stuff, it's like, when is the bigger picture going to change? When are we going to start making the changes necessary to make our city safe again? That's kind of what it comes down to.
So, my answer to that, and it's not a perfect answer by any means, but it's simply that we just can't give up. We can't just roll over. And some days I'm sure that there are people in this meeting, you just feel like it. Like, okay, I've had it. I can't do this anymore. But you know what? I just don't think we can give up. This is how we get to where you want to get to. This is how we do it. Start, I hate to be so crass, but it's a lot about just investment. And, with anything else, you invest in property and you're really proud of it, very protective of it. And now we have a handful. Let's get like many handfuls of people with their businesses who are willing and have very strong feelings and highly motivated to protect their areas. Now, let me add one other thing before I forget. So there are a lot of people running for District 7's council seat, and there's some really good candidates there. I've talked with three of them, and they see the value in what we're doing here. So I feel pretty confident that even after December 31st, the successful candidate is going to want to continue with the redevelopment of this area. But it's really up to the people it's up to the constituents, you all, to keep pressure on that person, just like people pressure me. You guys keep pressuring me until December 31st, and then we'll have somebody else who will take that over. So anyway.
This is Marcus with RIL Automotive. I feel that, like Zach was saying, we got to get the city back, our safety back. I think the biggest part is just that the police force is so understaffed that them going, every day, all day, as hard as they possibly can to try to stay on top of everybody's concerns is just overwhelming. We can, with the businesses, opening up and getting more people in there, the way to retain them in there is going to be like we're all saying the same thing, is not just, making everybody feel good, but making the area feel safe to where people want to come to conduct business. A lot of people will go to different parts of the city just because they don't want to deal with all the issues that are in our area. And it's all over the city, but we're just, affected where we're at. But I think the understaff of the police force is got us, the vagrants know, they know their schedule, they know where to come in, they know where to come out, they know how to just, push everybody's buttons, and you can't talk to them, because they're so just unpredictable. But I think our police is doing, about as much as they possibly can, but you can only do so much when you only have so much, people, hands on deck per se, So I just think that that's a huge thing that needs to be talked about, is adding the police force to be able to implement the pressure to keep these guys moving, keep them from stopping, keep them, on their toes, but they just migrate from one to the next, and it is pretty, you have, people showing up to your business and they don't feel comfortable. That's probably the last time they're going to come by there, So I just think that the police side of it needs to be a discussion with the city too, within the city, kind of trying to get more police force. That way we could actually make a difference also.
Agreed.
Jackie Ford has his hand up.
Brad, did you want to say something? You have your
Well,
hand
I
up?
want to echo what Marcus said. I like the idea of the police substation. And obviously with the diversion channel right there, a bike patrol kind of be assigned to it as well. You know, you do have a lot of trails, a lot of under crossings, a lot of bridges where it makes it scary, or you know, you don't want to go there at night. And one of the things that if you patrol it at night, maybe on a really semi irregular basis, so they don't know the schedule, maybe that'll clean it up a little bit. But that's a tough sell to any police force anyway. But they can drive on my trail if they want. So that being said, though, obviously it's a slow process, and I applaud all your efforts so far. You know, AMAPCA has very specific things we have to do, we can do, and a lot of things we can't do. But we definitely like our partners with the city and our surrounding businesses that, you know, we want to add to, not be a distraction for. So, you know, that big white stripe down the middle is our property, and we are constantly chasing the problem, you know, maybe into the neighborhoods, and maybe that needs to be rethought about. So,
Hey, Brad, looks like maybe we're long lost cousins or something. I don't think we're related though.
I don't know, where'd you come from?
Anyway, my wife and I were talking, so we own one of our businesses is Zephyr Fitness, and we utilize the diversion channel of the trails a lot for you know, runs or bike rides, community events type stuff. And we were talking, we're like, well, what if there was a you know, like a way to like adopt a section of the trail or something like that, where you partnered with local businesses to, you know, like kind of like people adopt sections of the freeways. Yeah, so you'd be like, oh, you know, this section is adopted by Zephyr Fitness, and we kind of, you know, or even, you know, one area, maybe just the Midtown Business Coalition, where we go out and we kind of, you know, we'll clean up that area, or who knows what it is. Maybe we can design parts of it, or, you know, add some other amenities along it. Maybe you know, I hate to put a bench because it'll get misused, but, you know, something like bench, or maybe there's some other fitness stuff. You know, sometimes long trails, they got, you know, like pull up bars and balance beams. You know, maybe there's some other stuff to, like, amenities that, you know, could be added, or maybe it's something, maybe even artwork. Some other business could put out some, you know, some steel art or something, or, you know, maybe a way to kind of partner with the community to beautify and also kind of take ownership of the channel trail. What do you think?
Right, so I guess I misspoke a little bit. The asphalt trail is licensed to the city of Albuquerque for maintenance. We also use it for our maintenance road. So those types of amenities would have to work in the city process for the license. I like the idea of adopt a trail. And I don't know, you know, Dave Simons over at Parks and Rec, he's very progressive. Maybe that's an idea he can help us with.
Okay. I like that too.
Right. I mean, yeah, we'll mow the weeds outside the bike lane a little bit, and but the maintenance of the trail itself will be the city's maintenance responsibility. But boy, and you know, the number of users we have on the trail, it is quite well used. The more eyeballs, the better the whole situation is, you know. More lighting, more users that aren't the wrong kind of users, you know.
Right.
What about even like a camera system to be able to monitor for any bad activities, or, you know, some of those like they have around like UNM campus, like the blue emergency beacon stations or something to help users feel more comfortable. Because yeah, we're not going on that, especially where it dips under the freeways. Like it's like a death wish to use those things after dark, even during the day a lot of times. So maybe a way to help monitor activity remotely, but also document any kind of bad activity that can be helped to prevent it in the future. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if that'd be on you guys or on the city.
Well, it would be
Or
on the
what?
city. That wouldn't be a flood control thing. It would be a trail thing. But we would, I'm sure we would welcome that if you and the city came to us with that proposal.
What about, sorry.
I just can't pay for it, Marcus. That's the problem. So
What about those police cameras that they put up like in the middle of Menaul and stuff like that? They got like, it's the police station camera with the 4 cameras on it. What if we were able to get a couple of those out, just like Zach's saying, just to kind of document a little bit of stuff that's going on and get that presence out there that, hey, this area is being monitored. And I know the police can set those up relatively easier than, a whole infrastructure, putting stuff in the ground. Maybe that would just get that presence out there, because they could just set those up in different spots along the trail and kind of just keep them, they're mobile, so you could just move them around a little bit and at least get some presence going that way.
yeah, not a bad idea.
Yeah, it sounds good.
There's a chat. Okay.
I was just going to add that we can add some of these ideas into the report as we're finishing them. And then as we move forward with the project into phases 2 and 3, try to move those ideas forward and figure out the responsibility and the cost and some of those things. Identify partners between the city and other entities and departments. So I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you.
And this is Petra, just echoing what Jackie said. These are great comments. Just so that there isn't any confusion, the version of the Menaul plan that's going to go up on the website tomorrow won't reflect all the great comments we heard from tonight. It'll be more reflective of, it's the document that informed the presentation, but we are taking notes on all of this, and we'll also be taking written comments from people for the next 2 weeks. And then all of what we hear from both tonight and anything we get over the next couple of weeks, we'll be working through those and incorporating those into the final version of the plan, which will be the one that goes through the council process for adoption by resolution. So if you log on tomorrow and you're looking at the plan and it doesn't seem to reflect tonight, that's why. We're not quite there yet.
Right. Yeah. What's on the website is a draft version, and it says draft on every single page. So
Be clear.
yes.
So there was a chat from Steve Rowan who was asking.
Steve, did you have a comment? Steve Rowan?
I can see his comment. He might have-
Okay.
So
Or
his comment was just, how will people outside of the redevelopment area be affected?
did you all hear that? How would people outside the redevelopment area be affected? I'm not clear what that means.
So Jackie, I'm sorry, let me just, he's over on Monroe near Cutler. So
Okay.
if that's slightly outside the area to be designated, he just wants to know if he will have, I assume he's asking if they'll have any positive effects.
Oh, well, again, the recommendations that we've made to date aren't only for the MR area. I mean, we have recommendations for the entire study area, not so much the single family subdivision, but all the corridors. You can see in this graphic, there's a number of recommendations that would be impactful to others outside the designated area.
I know we talked about it a little bit, but I think you should put it in the recommendation for transportation to at least evaluate what it would take to put an on-ramp and off-ramp onto Menaul from I-25. Because if you, I mean, you talk about redeveloping an area and you want to bring business to an area, it's extremely challenging to get to Menaul from I-25. You gotta, get off on the Candelaria, then Comanche, and then you get to Menaul. And then it's even worse when you're getting on, like going north, or going south. You got to go all the way, past Central before you can even get on the freeway. So it makes it pretty inconvenient to get, like I say, on or off I-25. So maybe it's, now's the time to, might have a little more clout now to say, hey, look, why don't you look at it? What would it do to the area, especially with this many hotels? Accessibility, I think it would be greatly improved. And maybe that's part of the reason some of these businesses have a harder time. I don't know.
And Joni had a comment.
Joni, did you have a comment in the
Yeah.
chat? Go ahead.
Unmute.
You need to unmute.
I'm sorry. My owners are 2,500 miles away. And, how could I get them involved in wanting to do something with that warehouse on the Menaul Road, right behind the Quonset hut, west of the Quonset hut? I mean, how can I get them involved and have them understand if there's any types of tax credits or anything that they could use for maybe a redevelopment of that? I mean, is there?
So one of the things, Joni, that we'll do in the MR plan is, and we've done a lot of them for communities around the state. We have a funding source appendix that we keep up to date. We update it a couple times a year, and it's geographically appropriate. So they'll have access to that information. We'll also identify, investment strategy type, not strategies, but investment type opportunities that, we'll have a lot of that in the actual document. And that will be during phase 3. So hopefully that'll be insightful for your owners. And you can also call me at any time and we can talk through some of that as well.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yep.
Joni, were your owners, is it new owners? Because I know the Crowne was for sale at some point in time, right? Is it still for sale, or is it it's always for sale, or?
I think it's always for sale. My boss said, we're going to own that place, I know, for another 20 years. They are putting a lot of money into it, like some of the boilers and some of the things that made it unattractive to buy before. But we do have the same owners. Now, the Fairfield Inn is now the Quirky Hotel. The Quirky Hotel is only because they named it. Again, they're 2,500 miles away, but just search engines, when you're looking for Albuquerque, a lot of people spell Albuquerque wrong, and we couldn't figure out what. I wanted the Hotel Burke, but they thought the Quirky Hotel would give them a lot more presence on the internet when you're searching in Google. But that warehouse is, we've owned the place. We were built in 1951, so we are 50 years old this year. So that warehouse used to be something, but it's been there since probably before 1951. So I'm just going to say that. And the Quonset hut has been there just as long, I think. But I don't know if they would ever sell that strip of land on the north side of the property, Menaul Road to Menaul. They might, if the offer was decent, they might. I don't know. It's an employee lot and just a dirt lot with the big warehouse on it. So I don't know. I've got the square footage if you'd like it.
Okay, yeah, send me the information.
I'll take it.
All right. Anyone else want to add any comments? We're at about 7:30. That's the stated end of the meeting. If you want to add a few more comments before we log off, you're also welcome to contact me at my office, Petra, Abby, the counselor, either directly through email, phone, or on the city's website. Again, we'll be taking comments for the next 2 weeks. We got a lot of good comments tonight. We'll be discussing all of those, and I'm sure we'll be adding a lot of good information into the existing document before it gets adopted by resolution by the city council.
Is there any kind of like a city building that would be useful in the area? Like, I don't know, I mean, like maybe a tourist center or something. Like, I know the piece of land west of Maverick is for sale, where they lease out for trucks, but you know, could you envision a use of some of this redevelopment area to actually put a city-owned building? Like I say, I don't know, I mean, something that makes sense to me would be like a travel, you know, a visitor center. It's right on both freeways. It might make a museum type of cultural thing with visitor center. It might be a good use of a space and add a lot of value. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't really speak to that. I can't imagine another city building there, but you know, anything's possible. I had a client before Maverick that looked at that property for indoor storage facility, and all the issues at the Maverick because of the leaking underground storage tanks just made it not feasible for him. But now that Maverick has cleaned that up, I think the area to the west is, getting more attractive than it had been. And I've also noticed that the trailers, a lot of them are gone, and I wasn't sure what was going on there. Seems like they've moved out, a lot of them out.
They're probably getting stolen.
Yeah.
Or burned. I know some of them actually have been lit on fire.
Wow.
I think Dollar General, didn't they have, they were kind of leasing the property at one point, or putting their trailers on the property. I don't know. There used to be a ton of, was it Dollar General trucks, I think? I don't remember, but yeah, but they're not there anymore.
It's been for sale for a long time. And I looked at it for my client, probably at least 4 years ago. So I think Maverick has done a nice job, but obviously there's a lot more land there.
So is that lot is actually separate, or does Maverick own that whole thing now?
I think it's separate, but I can check to be sure. I know the commercial broker that's represents the owner. So I can check, but I'm pretty sure it's a separate lot. And you can see in this drawing, this sort of light line. Can you see that? That to me looks like a separate lot where the Maverick is. And then this larger lot that has a leg that extends east to University, that looks like a second lot to me.
So when you talk about this, the dashed line being potentially like the redevelopment area, is that like a really hard boundary, or is it like, if you have a property that like adjoins it or is like 1 or 2 spaces away, is it like negotiable whether that can be included, or is it this is the boundary and that is all?
Well, this is and Petra can jump in, but this is our recommendation. Remember, to be a MR area, you have to exhibit certain characteristics of blight and disinvestment. So there's a lot of area to the north of there that, I mean, looks like, there's a lot of industry going on and good business models happening there. But yes, I think the boundary is a recommendation, and if there is a recommendation to change it, then feel free to let us know that.
So this is Petra. I'll just add in that at this stage, the boundary is a recommendation. And so the next two phases will be to designate the boundary and to draft the plan for the MR area. That both of those are public processes. And so during that public process, that's when people say, I don't want to be in the area. I do want to be in the area. And when the boundary will get shifted around and then at the end of it finalized. But once the MR area is adopted, then it is a hard line, and you do have to be in it to have those opportunities to be in the MR.
Is there any disadvantage to being in the MR?
No,
No,
not in my opinion.
sometimes there's a concern about the perception, because being designated an MR does require a designation of blight, so it does indicate that there are potential issues in the area, and so some people don't like to have that designation. But there's an awful lot of tools that come with it to move beyond that. So it's generally, I think, a good thing to be designated.
The other area, I didn't call this out, but and we're not necessarily calling for a MR designation, but the shopping center at the northeast corner of Menaul and Carlisle also has a lot of disinvestment happening. There's a empty vacant building on the east side. There's several vacant tenant spaces. So this is an area that needs some help as well.
I think that park right there too could use some maybe some revamp too, if you include that in the boundary. I don't know what that would mean to include a park in the area, but I know sometimes that's frequented by vagrants and there's needles, and sometimes it's not so safe to hang out there.
Right.
So my office has been working with that neighborhood association for years, and we just have to keep at it. Actually at times it really has improved, but it kind of ebbs and flows, and I believe we'll always need some special attention. But you're right, I agree with everything you said.
All right. Petra, do you want to wrap up?
Yes. So thanks everyone for joining us. We really appreciate everyone's time and thoughts and contributions tonight. This was really helpful. I can tell already we'll have probably a fair number of extra recommendations based on the feedback we got tonight. And this was exactly why we have public meetings. So this was really great. Thanks everyone. And we look forward to hearing more from you as this project continues.
Yes. Thank you and have a great night.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. You guys were really constructive and we appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.